guys, it's time for another movie review because they just keep on coming. So this is gonna be on the newest Planet of the Apes movie, the War for the Planet of the Apes. Now, after I saw this movie, I actually went online and checked out the synopsis for the original Planet of the Apes movie with Charlton Heston. And after reading that, I can see that they followed the original Planet of the Apes storyline in terms of like a follow up storyline. So a lot of what happens in this movie really is sort of trying to catch up as like the story before the Planet of the Apes. So I guess from that perspective, it's I people probably will like it better than me if they are a fan of the original Planet of the Apes and it's all this series. I really was not too much a fan of this movie. I think I was kind of disappointed. I really liked the first one. I really liked the second one. This one was just there are too many things that just didn't make much sense, and I just thought the story was really lazy overall. Um, and I'm gonna go into that. So to start off, this movie kind of it follows from it picks up from the last movie, Koba's betrayal, start the war, and then Caesar and his apes are in this mountain, but then the humans are still trying to exterminate them for some reason. Uh, this is also just like the first thing. Like it's really weird because if human beings are really facing extinction, I think the more likely scenario is that they're gonna try to um, negotiate with these apes, especially since they are pretty much like human. They're like human beings before human beings develop like all this technology, all these cities, and from what I've seen, I think the characteristic of the apes is that they don't need a lot of things that human beings need. So they don't need a lot of clothing. They're much faster, and they tend to have like higher survival skills in terms of like the physical survival skills. So they're not like human beings. They don't need a lot of like technology and artificial stuff to help them along. But the movie sort of kind of portrays as because they are better adapted at this flu whatever thingy that human beings are trying to wipe them out. Just because. I mean, you know, it just doesn't seem. It's just such a lazy storyline because if you know anything about evolution, about like extinction and all that stuff, it isn't just about who's better fit. Like just because a species is better fit than you doesn't mean that they're gonna out select you into extinction. It's not like that. It There's like a competition for resources. So this is why I'm saying like this movie has a really lazy storytelling because if you really want to go down this route, you really have to show in what ways uh, are these apes outcompeting human beings vastly in terms of resources. Like they are able to take so much resources from human beings that human beings are essentially there's no way for them to be able to get the resources back enough to have the balanced reproduction numbers, the balanced offspring numbers, in order to have the species survive. And also in the original Planet of the Apes, after I read the synopsis, I realized that what they're saying was like humans had a nuclear war, and that's how uh, they were able to wipe almost all of humanity out. And I think it was suggested that the nuclear radiation, whatever it is, that was what made the humans reverting back to like a more primitive state. Whereas in this movie, they were trying to say it's because the flu somehow mutated, and then people who are infected, start to lose speech. And this is also another thing, like, I really didn't like, because in the original Planet of the Apes, based on the synopsis, it has this really interesting question about human beings de-evolving, right? And then the apes are like evolving, but human beings de-evolving. But if you de-evolve, you're kind of becoming more and more like savages, right? Like, because human beings evolved not just in terms of technology, but also in terms of, group cooperation, and human beings became less and less violent, compared to how we were previously, and all of that stuff. And that would actually be something interesting. But this movie really pitched it as human beings are just evil, violent, motherfuckers, and they deserve to be extinct. They're just morally bad. The movie is so black or white. It's so black and white. It's just the apes are good people. They deserve the land, and the human beings are just bad people, really for no real reason. They're all just bloodthirsty people who want to either exterminate the competition, or they wanted to use them somehow. And then this is also another thing, like, this movie has this huge allusion to extreme right-wing Nazis. I mean, there's like, I literally rolled my eyes sky high when I saw like the apes concentration camp. I'm just like, oh my god, not again, And the colonel, played by Woody Harrelson, he literally, like, he's the skinhead, and they don't even want to make that even remotely ambiguous. He literally has a shaver and shaves his head. That's how skinhead he is. I mean, I'm not kidding. And then he somehow has all these followers. I mean, he somehow has an army with him, which is just really, really implausible. And I'll tell you why. So, according to this movie, the colonel, played by Woody Harrelson, found out about this the simian flu mutation. It happened to his son, and then his son's doctor, and it just gets passed down, like almost airborne or something. I'm not exactly sure how it's really passed down. And he killed his own son, and he somehow was able to convince all the people in his army to kill their close families or their friends. Anybody who has this mutated version of the flu. I'm sorry, that's ridiculous, okay? Just think about it. We human beings, struggle so hard at pulling the plug from somebody who's essentially brain dead. Even though it costs so much money. I mean, I'm not even talking about those on people's tax money. I mean, even that was like, people paying taxes, or you were like, I don't know, like, should we do it, should we not do it, and you have a big debate about it. But there are people who literally are willing to spend so much money, to the point of destitution in order to keep somebody who's brain dead alive. Do you honestly think that you would have so many people, I mean, maybe one or two psychopaths, like this colonel, maybe he's a psychopath, like, for him it's okay, but do you honestly think you can convince, like, a whole army of people, like, enough people to build a solid army for you to do such things to their own children, to their loved ones, to their wives? No. Okay, especially since what's revealed in this movie is that the colonel is saying that this flu is reverting human beings into a primitive state just because they ended up losing speech. But from what we've seen from this movie was that really they just lost speech. That's it. They lost the ability for vocal language. They didn't actually lose their ability for language, because as we can see from the little girl Nova, and she's supposedly the younger version of the Nova in the original Planet of the Apes movie. From what we can see from her, she has language, no problem. She just needs a sign, basically. And she apparently learned that really quickly. And she could also understand language fine. She just couldn't speak. Okay, so it's really a minor thing. There's no, like, if the movie wants to say that this flu goes further, then they need to show that. Otherwise, really, again, like I said, this movie is really just making everything black and white. It's just basically saying that human beings are starting to lose speech. But as soon as they start to do that, there's just this guessing about, oh, they're gonna become like monkeys or something like that. And therefore, we need to exterminate them, and therefore, we manage to get a whole army of people, maybe even more people, to exterminate not just strangers who have this mutated form of flu, but our own children. Okay, that's just fucking retarded. I'm sorry. Okay, and just another thing, like honestly, at this point, in our in the political situation that we have right now, at this point, I'm just really really sick of these characters caricatured as right wing extremists. I'm really sick and tired of this right wing extremist as bad guys cliche, okay? Because this is not what's happening right now. And it's really just kind of avoiding the other side of the conversation, which is that the left wings can also become authoritarian. But what we see now, with the Hunger Games, with this, with a bunch of other stuff, it's just all right wing extremists, like people who are nationalists, and I guess this in this case is like a speciesism, whatever, species nationalism. I don't even know what to call this. And to make the cliche complete, they built a concentration like death camp for these apes so they can work these apes to death and then exterminate them. And yeah, it's just really it really kind of annoyed me. And on top of that, there were just so many things that just it's really stupid. It's really ridiculous. Like Nova walking into the camp, and nobody notices. Like she could go, without anybody sensing like that she's there. Especially since she didn't just like walk into the camp by herself. She stayed like in front of the cage of Caesar and giving him all this stuff, and people just didn't notice. I mean, it just, do you really think that if human beings are going to build, or in this movie, they're going to build a concentration camp for apes, and they know that these apes are just as intelligent and they have like the physical advantage that human beings don't have? Do you really think like they're monitoring these apes would be so loose that their surveillance would just be like not catching things like that? Same with like what happened in the cage with the system. I mean, the fact that human beings didn't find, like they didn't happen to run into these tunnels, just things like that. It's like, just really not plausible with this setting. So just all in all, it just kind of annoyed me. And I think probably the only scene that was kind of cool, I mean, it was kind of like deep, I guess, was at the end when the other human beings came to bomb this army for some reason. Like, the reason behind it is really, again, it's not really solid. It's kind of shaky. And they were eliminated by a snowstorm, whereas the apes were, most of the apes survived because of their superior physical advantage. Yeah, I guess that's kind of cool. And also, going back to like the black and white kind of a thing, if you've seen the original Planet of the Apes, you can see that the ape society eventually was not a good society. I mean, it was a caste system, it was quite brutal. And in this movie, it showed none of that. It was just showing that the apes are just good people. Like, they're like human beings, but they're good. Like, they show mercy, they don't randomly kill, and they're all like an innocent little thing. And then also like the annoying thing with the girl Nova with her big blue eyes, and made you go, oh, just all of these things. And I just wish that the story could have been smarter. It could have it could have had a more balanced view about life, about the nature of humanity. You know, like it could have been a bit more gray instead of like humans bad, apes good. Um, so all in all, I think it was an amateur script. I'm sorry, like it didn't really impress me. Actually, I was kind of bored with all the cliches, and the visuals are all really impressive. I mean, Andy Serkis is like a god in terms of doing this kind of a motion capture kind of a thing. So the acting was good and everything, but it's really overshadowed by a poor plot, a really mediocre story, and just a really black and white message, really. So I wasn't too much of a fan of it, and it's kind of disappointing because like I said, I really liked the first one, and I really, really liked the second one, and this one was just. So, anyways, is it worth go watching? It's up to you. I mean, I actually don't recommend it. I recommend actually when the DVD comes out, just go and see it on whatever. I mean, Pirate Bay it or something. I don't care. I don't particularly find this movie to be worthy to watch in the theater. I have to be honest. I'm not disappointed. So next week I'm going to see the new Christopher Nolan movie, Dunkirk. I'm kind of excited about that. Although also kind of you know, a little bit apprehensive too because it's also about a topic that tends to be heavily biased. But we'll see. Good actors, and I'll probably be doing a review on that next week. So see you guys then. Bye.